What's up, y'all? My name is Allison, tuning in from Jazz Lesson Videos. And today I would love to help you with some concepts about reharmonization, LUSH piano concepts, block chords, shell voicings, many other topics. So stick around and we're going to go deep into each of those subjects, and we hope that you enjoy. And everything that we discuss today can be found in my new course entitled LUSH Piano Concepts. In it, you'll get full access to everything that we're going to discuss, along with much more material. And if you would like to check out the entire course, then the link is in the description attached below, and just use the code LUSH25 to get $25 off. All right, y'all, so let's go ahead and dive into the first concept for today. And the first topic that we're going to dig into is shell voicings. So shell voicings are essentially using just a couple of very important notes from our chord. So if we just start with a C dominant seventh chord. So you're going to have a C major triad. And for your dominant seventh, you're going to add a note that's a minor third above your fifth. So you're going to add your B flat. Now from here, our shell voicings are only going to use, they're actually always going to use the root. So the root of this chord is C. And you're also either going to use your third or your seventh or both of them together. So starting with our C dominant seventh one more time. You can do a shell voicing with just your 1 and your 3, your 1 and your 7, 1, 7, and 3. And if you have big hands and you can make the stretch, then you can also do 1, 7, 3. So now instead of your third being just a third above the root, your third is now a 10th above the root. So a good exercise for this is just taking this around the keys, moving it up chromatically all the way through 1 and 3 and also 1 and 7. Now, shell voicings don't have to only be used on a dominant seventh chord. They can be used on a minor seventh chord. They can be used for a major seventh chord, a major minor seventh chord. Now, of course, when you start to get into more notes in some of these chords, you might want to delineate whether it's major or minor from time to time. It depends on the context. So sometimes I might use the 1, 7, and 3. Sometimes I might just use the 1 and the 7. Other times I might only use the 1 and the 3. So the next step after this, there's a small exercise that I love to do, especially when I was starting to get acclimated to some of these voicings. And this is really just going through the keys, all 12 of our keys. And you're starting with really just 2, 5, 1 voicings. So if we're in the key of C, we're going to do a 2, 5, 1 in C. So our 2 voicing is going to be a D minor 7. So if we do our shell voicing for that, and I'm going to actually call these 2 different types of shell voicings. We're going to say that there's an open shell voicing, and then there's a closed shell voicing. So our open shell voicing is going to be our root and our 7. So our D minor 7, we have D and C. And then for our closed shell voicing, that's going to be our root and our third. So for D minor, again, that would be D and F for root and third. Now what we're going to do with these shell voicings is we're going to alternate. So for a 2, 5, 1 voicing, we're going to call this an open, closed, open shell voicing movement. So D minor, open, G7, closed, C major 7, open. I'll do it one more time. D minor 7, if I fill the rest of those notes in, that's what we have. Closed for our G7, back open for our C major 7. Now, the cool thing about this exercise is you can just keep going down in whole steps. So the only thing that's changing is our tonal center. So we start with C major, we move down to B flat major, down to A flat major, down to G flat, E, D, and that takes us right back to C. So to demonstrate this, open, closed, open, 2, 5, 1 shell voicings. Next tonal center, B flat. A flat. And as you can see, we're landing on what I say the tonal center is. So the next one from here, we're going to land on G flat. But the cool thing that makes this kind of interlocking and it helps it to flow really smoothly is that where we land, that now becomes our 2 of our next key, right? You probably already saw me doing that a few times before this one. Now I'm going to E, make it minor. Going to D, make this minor. Going back to C. Now, as you can hear, right here, kind of in this register of the piano, it starts to get just a little bit muddy. So these are really important things to be mindful of. So I know I mentioned you have your closed voicing, your open voicing. We'll also call the other one, you remember when I said the 10th earlier, we're going to call that one the wide open voicing. So we have closed, open, and wide open. All right, and now let's go ahead and get into the next thing. This lesson, I would like to discuss another very, very significant thing for pianists to know and be comfortable playing, and this is block chords. When we hear people like Oscar Peterson, people like George Shearing, who I've been listening to a ton lately, so many musicians use this. Those are two who come to mind immediately. But block chords is something that is a very beautiful, warm, and lush sound that you can use when comping or also when playing through melodies. So to break down block chords, and this is similar to a way that one of my heroes and somebody who I had a chance to study a little bit with when I moved to New York City through some of the sessions that he would teach, and that's the late, great Barry Harris. Shout out to Barry Harris for changing and impacting the lives of so many pianists and musicians alive today. So, block chords, he kind of explained it from, and it's all derived from this scale, which is, I believe, the major bebop scale. So if we're to play a C major scale, and now the only thing that we're going to change is we're going to put add, is placing a half step between the 5 and the 6 of that scale. So now it would look something like this. Now from here, to play through this entire thing, everything is going to exist within the octave. So I'll actually start a little bit lower. And also, speaking of playing lush sounds, I feel like when you get a little bit lower in the piano, not too muddy, but right in that sweet spot, kind of the meatier area of the instrument, I feel like that's already going to give you a little bit more of a lush and warm sound. So we have our octave and we have our scale. Now from here, we're really just going to alternate between two chords. So we have our C6 chord, and we're just going to play this in every single inversion. Kind of sounds like a tune, right? Anyways, we'll get back to that later. So, all we're going to do is alternate between the C6 chord and our D diminished. And we're just tracing this through the scale. And as you can see, each of these notes are following the scale all together. And Barry Harris would call this six diminished passing chords, I believe. And I would definitely recommend, when it comes to block chords, doing this works very easily over songs that are generally fairly diatonic. So the melody goes. Now, I'll stop there. That's a little bit of the song, just for reference, in your ear. As you can see, very diatonic. So if I were to use these block chords in the context of the song and playing it over the melody, it'll sound something like this. All right, so here's another concept that I'm pretty sure you guys are gonna dig. And this time I would like to discuss a sound that was made pretty famous by a few musicians, one namely being McCoy Tyner, and that is quartal voicings, not to be mistaken for chordal, C-H-O-R-D-A-L, but instead Q-U-A-R-T-A-L. Very important delineation. So quartal voicings, it's in the name. It's basically building voicings and everything is in fourths. So if we're going to start with the F blues, and this is something you can reference a recording of McCoy Tyner entitled Passion Dance, where nearly the entire song is F, F7. Kind of a little bit of F sus in there. There are some other tonalities that you hear him experimenting with in the song, but generally speaking, F7, F sus sort of sound. So there's actually a scale that this is built on, and that scale is our dominant scale, also known as our Mixolydian scale. So if I were to play this scale starting on F, the only difference between that and the major scale is going to have an E natural, so our 7 and our 1 is going to be a half step away from each other. For this Mixolydian or dominant scale, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be a flat 7. Now if I start here in my left hand and I just build fourths, all based on that scale, right? Now, here an interesting thing happens, because like I mentioned, we're building it based on the scale, because if we were to just keep playing in fourths from here, right, which is also a really, really nice sound, you can keep going up with that, right? Really interesting sound, but we're staying within the sound of this A natural. There's something about that tritone that opens it up quite a bit, which is a really pretty sound. Going up a fourth from here, up another fourth from there. Now I have 6 notes, and I can practice going up the scale with this sound, right? Now, I would probably more commonly use, and even when I hear most other people play these sounds, I hear more often than not playing 5-note voicings. So we'll start with the melody of the scale at the very top, and we're just going to work our way down in fourths this time. So instead of building up, this time we're going to start up top, work our way down. And if you want for a little bit of reference, you can hit F in the bottom, and we're just going to work our way through that scale. Back down. So, if I were to play through a blues, and actually there's another sound that's very important as well, that's rooted in fourths, and this is a sound that you hear in Miles Davis's recording, So What?, which is almost all fourths. The only change is that you're gonna have a third on the top. Now this time I'm in D. Now instead of it being F Mixolydian, now we're in D Dorian. Now, one cool thing about D Dorian, that's all the white keys of the piano, so it's very easy to move these sounds around here. And sometimes as I play through this stuff, I change the rhythm. Right? So, you can use this same sound of these So What voicings and to bring it back to F, dominant. And as you can see, you're already seeing that there's 2 contexts that you can use these sounds in. Now there's more as well, but just to kind of think about the 2, you can use it in a Mixolydian sound or dominant sound, but you can also use it over a Dorian or minor sound. So for example, for F, those So What voicings, breaking out into my fourths. Now here's the last thing that we're getting into for today. We are going to be discussing something that is very important to know as an accompanist. Piano, guitar, vibraphone, even if you play another instrument, this is really good for everybody to be aware of. And this is inner voice movement. I think everything that we play, we should be aware of the voice leading of everything to the best of our ability. You want to try to at least develop more and more awareness, which is something I'm working on now even. Understanding more about how each of the other notes underneath the melody are supporting the melody and what it is in the context of the song itself. So if we were to take a song, let's just keep doing Embraceable You. Thinking about what's happening on the inside of the arrangement. So, one immediate thing is if I play a voicing like this, if I'm on my one chord, there can be a couple of notes, maybe my 7 and my 5, and I can move those notes around. Now on top of that, I can also move around. One thing that was really, really helpful for me with this was playing through the hymnal. Not that everybody would have a hymnal. Maybe you can get one. Maybe if you find a church in the area, you could probably borrow one. If they're kind enough to allow you to borrow one, definitely ask. Don't say that Luther told you on jazz lesson videos to go steal a hymnal from a church. That's not what I said. Go ask some people that work there, and maybe they'll be kind enough to lend it to you for a couple days. That's actually what my experience was when I was in Tennessee, and I was playing for a church. I was learning organ, and I was playing for a church down there, and I would oftentimes play through the hymnal, and it was interesting to see how everything was split up harmonically, because these are also parts that vocalists are singing. So even thinking of things in 4-part harmony, sus to my 3. Maybe my 4 goes up in the right hand, so they're moving in contrary motion. If we want to start to add in some other upper structure notes, or alterations rather, now, as you can see, there's times when I'm moving another note and it's not affecting whatever the note is on the top. Now, obviously, it's changing the chord, the name of the chord. But at the same time, unless you intentionally want to have certain rubs, there are certain things I'm generally kind of staying away from. So maybe if my melody is on the 3rd and I'm on a major chord, my 5 can move around a little bit. Now, with this, maybe my 3 can move with that down here. Maybe I can have some motion here as well. Messing with this and doing it in different keys. And really one of the best examples of inner voice movement that I could teach also comes from the late, great Barry Harris. This was a very popular idea that I'm not sure if he was the originator of this or if he came up with this himself or if it was inspired by something else. But I saw him in a video years ago on YouTube playing this. Which I feel is now kind of referred to as, I feel like I just hear people say the Barry Harris thing. Now, basically, this is all just 3 different things. Root, third in an octave in our right hand, and our 7. And now we're using my middle finger from my right hand, thumb of the left hand. Now, the only note that's changing is that 7. But everything else is just moving here, diatonically. Now, all of these notes are also moving diatonically as well. Now, another thing that you could do to add a little bit more motion is you can go down diatonically, down chromatically, and then back up. Now I'm playing it a little bit differently on the way down, right? Now I use it as a modulation there, going to the 4, making it minor right there. But this inner voice movement is kind of adding a little bit more motion, a little bit more direction to the arrangement. All right, everybody, thank you so much for checking this out. Once again, if you want to see the entire course, check the link in the bio. And until next time, y'all have a good one. Keep swinging. Peace.